Okay, welcome back, guys. We're going to look at lesson 1.9 today with defining variables and setting up word problems and solving them with proportions and multiple items. So if you remember in 1.6, you defined a variable and you wrote and you solved an equation for a situation. So this is a little review of that. So your backpack contains 15 bags of chips. There are 7 more bags of Fritos than there are of Takis. How many Fritos do you have? So when we're looking at a variable, try to pick a letter for what you're actually looking for. So what do we not know? Well, we know there's 15 bags of chips. We know there's 7 more bags of Fritos than there are of Takis. So we know something about Fritos. How many bags of Fritos do we have? So we're looking for Fritos. We know something about Fritos, though. We know there's 7 more bags of Fritos. What do we not know anything about? So because we know there's 7 more bags of Fritos, that's going to be our Takis plus 7. So there's 7 more bags than there are of Takis. So what do we know nothing about? We know nothing about Takis. That's what we need to solve for. So I'm going to label it T, and that's going to be for my bags of Takis. So we need to write and solve that equation. One of the easiest places you can start with is the total. You don't have to start there. That's why I'm going to start with this one because it gave it to us. We know there's a total of 15. We also were told with that 15 bags that there's going to be Takis and Fritos. But what else do we know? We can't have 2 variables. We know we're looking for T. That's the one we know nothing about. So what do we know about Fritos? We know Fritos had 7 more bags than Takis. So that's why I wrote this little equation up here. We have Takis plus 7. So that's going to give us our Fritos. So we have our normal Takis. And then for our Fritos, we're doing our Takis plus 7. So that's its own little part of the equation. So you're going to have Takis twice, but that's okay because this is your actual Takis, and then this is Fritos. And then all that equals 15. So that's our equation. How do we solve it? Well, this is just plus, so what's T plus T? That's going to be 2T, and then plus your 7, because you can't combine T and 7, they're not like terms, equals 15. We're going to subtract 7, so 2T equals 8, and then just following Sad Meg, divide by 2, and T equals 4. So we know T, we know our bags of Takis is 4. But what did the question ask for? The question wants to know how many bags of Fritos do we have? So we knew Fritos had 7 more bags than Takis. So that T plus 7, if I know Takis is 4, then what's 7 more than that? 11. So we know there's 11 bags of Fritos. Okay, so we're going to do a very similar thing like that, but we're going to do it with proportions today. Proportions are just an equation that has 2 fractions or 2 ratios on either side. We use these in conversion problems a lot, and we can solve them by cross multiplying. Y'all call it butterfly method sometimes. That's all we're doing here. So we're going to cross multiply and we're going to divide like we did back in lesson 5. So, for example 1a, the scale on a map is 1/2 inch equals 50 miles. If the distance between 2 towns is 6 inches, how far apart are they in miles? So what do we not know? We know our inches, we know 1/2 inch is 50 miles, we know 6 inches, but what is 6 inches? We don't know. We don't know how many miles that is. So we need to look for the number of miles. We know 1/2 inch is 50 miles, but how much is 6 inches? That's what we have to find. So a proportion is just going to be a fraction. And it doesn't matter which one you put on top. We have two things here. We have inches and we have miles. I always just go in the order of the problem, but so I'll put inches on top and miles on the bottom. But if you put miles on top, it works the same way. So you're going to have a proportion on each, a fraction on each side of your proportion. And we want our first inches. Our first inch they gave us was a half. And how many miles was that? That was 50 miles. So that's inches over miles. What was our next inch? Then they gave us 6 inches. How many miles was that? That we didn't know. That's what we have to solve for. So we can cross multiply anytime you have a proportion. So 1/2 m equals 300. And then remember, fractions like this, 1/2, that's just division. So to do the opposite, we multiply by 2, or you can do the reciprocal 2/1, which is still just 2. 2/1 is just 2. So 300 times 2 gives us 600. That is m, so this is 600 miles. So set up your proportion with the 2 items it gives you. Make sure you keep it in order. Inches are on top, so 1/2 was an inch, 6 was an inch. And then the miles that go with it go on the bottom. 1/2 was 50 miles, and we didn't know how many miles for 6 inches. Then we just cross multiply and either multiply or divide. Okay, so example B, 1B. You find that your watch gains 2 minutes in 6 hours. How much will it gain in 3 days? So they're giving us our units. We have 2 minutes and 6 hours. I'm just going to go in order, put minutes on top and hours on the bottom. If you want to put hours on top, that works as well. Just make sure you keep it consistent on both sides of your equation. So what do we not know? The question says, how much will it gain in 3 days? Now, we haven't dealt with days. All it gave us was minutes and hours. So when it says, how much will it gain in 3 days, we can't work with 3 different units. So we have to convert that. But which one do we convert it to, minutes or hours? Well, the question says, how much will it gain? What are we gaining here? Are we gaining minutes or are we gaining hours? It says your watch is gaining 2 minutes. So we're looking for how much it's gaining in minutes. And then our days, we need to convert to hours. Just keep it consistent. You're gaining minutes in a certain amount of hours. So we're gaining minutes in, this needs to be hours. So there's 24 hours in a day, and we're looking at 3 days. That gives us 72 hours. You cannot work with 3 different units of time. It has to be just 2 units, a top and a bottom. You can't have 3 different things. So we want to know how much it'll gain in minutes. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for minutes. So the proportion I set up was minutes on top. The first minute it gave us was 2 minutes. In how many hours? 6 hours. The next minute it gave us, we weren't sure. That's what we're looking for because we want to know how much it'll gain. In how many hours? Remember, 3 days was 72 hours. And then we just cross multiply. 2 times 72 gives us, right over here, 144. 6 times m is 6m. And then this is 6 times m, so we multiply to get rid of it. And 144 divided by 6 is 24. And again, this is m, so this is 24 minutes. So watch those conversions. You can only have 2 units that you're looking at. If you get a third, you're going to have to convert something. Okay, 1C. The ratio of men to women at a college is 7 to 5. How many women students are there if there are 3,500 men? So it's telling us we're looking at men to women. So I'm put men on top of the fraction, women on the bottom. And what are we looking for? It says how many women students are there if there's 3,500 men. So we want to look for women students. So a proportion is going to have a fraction on both sides. I got men on top of the fraction, so what's the first man it gives me? A ratio of men to women. Men is first. So my 7 to 5, the first one is going to be men. So that is 7 men to 5 women, because that's second. So 7 over 5. And then what's the next man it gave me? Then it told me 3,500 men, but we didn't know how many women. It said how many women, so we're just going to put W. And then we can cross multiply. So 7W equals 5 times 3,500 is 17,500. This is 7 times W, so I'm going to divide to get rid of it. So W equals 2,500. And it's W, so our correct units here is 2,500 women. Always put your correct units, no matter what. So those are your proportions. Set up the top and the bottom of your fraction. Keep it consistent on both sides. Men has to be on top on both sides, then women on the bottom of the fraction. Or if you flip that, make sure women are on top on both sides and then men on the bottom for both sides. Cross multiply and then divide. Okay, the other type we're going to look at is when we're defining variables in a term of another variable. I mean, we're talking about multiple things, but we can only have one variable. So if you recall in that problem we did at the very beginning about the Takis and Fritos, we had 2 types of chips. But what if we had 3 types of chips? We can only solve with one variable, so we're going to have to do a little extra here, a little configuring. So your backpack contains 35 bags of chips. All your chips total 35. There are 3 more bags of Doritos than there are of Fritos. And there are twice as many Takis as Fritos. How many of each kind do you have? So when we write our equation with words, we just want to say what we're all adding up or subtracting or multiplying or dividing. We're looking at chips. We know we have Doritos plus Fritos plus Takis. And all of that is going to be 35 bags of chips. That's my total. So we have 3 unknowns here. We have Doritos, Fritos, and Takis. So for my unknowns, my number of Doritos, do I know anything about Doritos? Well, it says I have 3 more bags of Doritos than Fritos. So that's saying my Doritos are going to be those Fritos plus 3 because I have 3 more bags of Doritos. So I'm going to have more than the Fritos. So that's my Fritos plus 3. For Fritos, did it give us anything about that? If you're not sure, come back to it because we see Fritos a couple times. So if you're not sure, come back to it. I'll come back to Fritos. What about Takis? It says we have twice as many Takis as Fritos. So that means our Takis are going to be twice as many as the Fritos. 2 times the Fritos. That's how many Takis you're going to have. So that's going to be twice the Fritos. The one that they don't give you anything about, that's the regular variable. That's just going to be F. So then I'm just going to replace everything in this equation that we made with the variables that we were given. So Doritos was F plus 3. My Fritos was just F. and my Takis was 2F. So I got Doritos, Fritos, and Takis. And all of that equaled 35. So that's my equation with one variable. Then I just need to solve it. So I have all these F's. I got 1F plus 1F plus 2F. That is 4F. Then I got that random 3. All of that equals 35. Then when I solve Sad Meg, I'm going to subtract the 3 first. So 4F is 32. And then this is 4 times F. The opposite is division. So then F is 8. So the question wants to know how many of each kind do we have? Well, what is F? F is my Fritos. So I know I have 8 bags of Fritos. And then that's where these little equations come in handy. I had 8 bags of Fritos. 8 plus 3 is my Doritos. So that gives me 11 Doritos. And then 2 times that Frito, 2 times 8, that gives me 16. So that is my Takis. So set up your equation with the information it gives you, and then solve it and plug it back in. Okay, example 2b. The sum of 3 consecutive integers is 145. Find the integers. Now, consecutive is a funny word. What does consecutive mean? That means the numbers come right after one another and they don't skip anything, like 1, 2, 3, or 40, 41, 42, -8, -7, -6. They come right after one another. So knowing that, if I have 3 of them, it's got to be like 1, 2, 3. And we want the sum. What does the sum mean? Sum means to add. So I'm going to add those 3 numbers up. So my equation in words, I'm going to have my first integer. I'm going to add my second integer. Then I'm going to add my third integer. And all of that is 147, equals 147. But what do I put in for first, second, and third? This is not 1 plus 2 plus 3. That doesn't give me 147. Now, if you look at these numbers, I'll do 1, 2, 3 again. This is my base number. That's always what I'm going to start with. That'll be my x. But how do I get from 1 to 2? I'm just adding 1. So from my base number, I'm going to add 1. How do I get from my base number, we always start with our base number, to 3? I'm adding 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. So that's my base number plus 2. And that works for any kind of consecutive numbers. So if I give you 52, 53, 54, the first one is your base. That's your initial. How do I get to 53? I'm going to add 1. So that's my base number plus 1. How do I get to 54? Always starting from your base. I'm going to add 2. So that's my base number plus 2. And that works for everything, even negatives. If I give you -8, -7, -6, the first one's my initial, my base number. To get to -7, I'm going to add 1. So that's my base number plus 1. To get to -6 from the original, that's my base number plus 2. So no matter what it is, if you're looking at consecutive integers, you're adding 1 to get to the second number, then you're adding 2 to get to the third number. So that first one, that's always your base. The second one, you're going to add a number. The third one, you're going to add 2. So that gives me my equation. My base, and then that second one, I'm going to add 1. To get to the third number, we're going to add 2. All of that gives me 147. And then I can just combine like terms and simplify and solve. So we got our x's, x plus x plus x is 3x. And then our numbers, 1 plus 2 is 3. And all of that equals 147. Then when I follow Sad Meg, I'm going to subtract 3. Go up here. So 3x equals 144. I totally put this in the wrong spot. This is defining the variables. The variables, this is just, we can call them x is your first integer. And then we can label these y and z. Okay, let me go back just a second. 1 second, just so this looks better, because that got all smushed up. Okay, so we can label them x, y, z, because we have 3 numbers. So this is always your base number, your first integer. Then you got your second integer. Then your third integer. All of that from your equation. So we got x plus y plus z, but like we said earlier, we're adding 1 to get the second number. Then we're adding 2 to get the third number. And all of that equals 147. Sorry, totally skipped the defining. Okay, now let's go back to what we were doing. Our x plus x, that's 3x. And then our 1 plus 2, that takes us back to where we just left off. Now when I follow Sad Meg, I'm going to subtract 3. So 3x is 144. And this is 3 times x, so I'm going to divide 3. So x equals 48. So this is x. This is always my base number. This is where I start. So that's my first integer. So my first integer is 48. So how do I get my second and third? Well, that's what this x plus 1 and x plus 2 are. To get my second one, remember, I just add 1 to my base number. That'll give me 49. To get to my third one, I'm going to add 2 to my base number. That'll get me 50. So my first integer is 48. My second integer is 49. My third integer is 50. And if you don't want to write it out like that, you can literally just put 48, 49, 50. Those are your 3 integers. Your 3 consecutive integers. Remember, they have to come right after another. Okay, so go try the practice that goes with these. Good luck.